Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, "You Stay Until the Kitchen is Cleaned." When I was 16, I worked at a fast food chain on a small island. Things are usually very quiet here. We'd take no more than 2,000 pounds in a day, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's an event on the island that brings in a huge number of people from abroad, often doubling the island's population for a month. During the 2-week event, we were open until 11 p.m. with 1 hour at the end of each day allocated to cleaning and closing the store, bringing us until 12 a.m. midnight as our finishing time on a closing shift. During the event, there's a lot of drinking and a lot of people going for takeouts, so we get absolutely swamped. We even have to ship in staff from other stores in the UK to assist, more on them later. We'd close the doors at 11 p.m. but there would still be a huge queue of customers which could easily take 30 meters plus to get through, and then all of those customers are allowed to sit indoors until 12 a.m. when we can kick them out, but often we didn't want to pick a fight with drunks, so we let them leave on their own accord. As you can probably imagine, this makes cleaning the store impossible by 12 a.m. The first night we were there until about 1 a.m., the next night it was closer to 2 a.m. When I asked the area manager about how we were getting paid for these extra hours, he said we were only to be paid until 12 a.m. as that was our shift on the rota. I said that I don't want to be working 2 to 3 hours each morning, for nothing, to which he replied, "You stay until everything is cleaned like everybody else. If I find out you leave without properly cleaning everything, we're going to have a problem." I went home, talked to my parents about it, and we made a plan. So on my next shift it was chaos, busier than I've ever seen it, queue out the door and halfway up the street. We weren't able to start cleaning until at least 12:30. The place was a mess and it ended up being about 3:30 before I called my mom to come pick me up. I was wired on energy drinks just to keep awake, and when I got home I couldn't sleep at all, and I was scheduled in for a 9 a.m. start the next, current morning. I slept for about 2 hours before I had to drag myself out of bed to get ready for work again and operate pressurized fryers filled with approximately 350 degrees Celsius oil. What could go wrong, right? The reason I called her for a lift home was so there was a record of it happening, and I also stood near one of the cameras so there was a recording with audio on the shop's CCTV. The law where I live clearly states that anybody under 18 is required to have at least 8 hours away from the workplace in any 24-hour period. That obviously didn't happen, so they broke the law, and my mom knew this. She called up the area manager to ask him what happened. He basically repeated what he had said to me, and she mentioned to him about the law and that by informing him of it, it's now 100% his responsibility and he would be liable for anything that happened during my shift, whether that's property damage, injury, etc. She also said she'd be reporting it to the equivalent of a union. We don't have unions here. He was used to bullying the staff here, as most were teens or young adults who were too scared to stand up to him, but he very quickly changed his attitude now that his neck was on the line. He called the local manager and told him to let me leave work for the day, with full pay, immediately, and as soon as it hit 12 a.m. on the next closing shift, I was again ordered to go home, so no more working without being paid. Once the other staff got wind of this, they followed suit. This had another extra bonus for us all though, which was probably the sweetest part of this. Remember the staff they shipped over? Well, they all got early shifts so they could go out and enjoy the partying that went on while we're all stuck in work until 3 a.m. They even had the cheek to come in, because they had keys, and have a dig at us about taking so long, which resulted in an argument and one of them crying. Anyway, the cleaning that we weren't able to do then became their problem when they arrived in the morning, which meant they had to either start earlier or work like crazy to get the shop open in time, or they'd face the wrath of the area manager. Duck them and duck the area manager. Next one is titled, "Malicious Compliance Used for Good Instead of Evil." My story occurred many years ago when I worked at a regional supply warehouse for a company who specialized in a certain kind of widget. I worked in the office taking calls from customers and working with the warehouse staff to get orders picked and shipped. Office staff communicated with the warehouse over the PA system. Only those of us in the office and supervisors had access to the PA system. Protocol was that we would state the person's name we were communicating with first, and then state whatever we had to say. We were to repeat it at least once. Being easily bored, I never repeated things exactly the same while injecting subtle humor where I could. All of it professional and above reproach, of course. There was a quality control department of 2 people who monitored the warehouse staff and helped when things went awry. These people knew the warehouse from end to end and were often called to find widgets that went missing. There was some friction between the office staff and quality control, because of petty reasons that I realized were stupid after being on the job for a couple of weeks. That friction sometimes bled over into the warehouse staff. On this day, the warehouse staff could not find a very particular widget for an important customer, so they called in Dory from quality control to find it while they moved on to other orders. Dory searched the warehouse from end to end but could not find it either. She was out of breath when she came scurrying up to my cubicle for help. She said, could you tell Mark that I have no clue where it is?" I asked, "You want me to tell Mark you have no clue?" She replied, "Yes, please," with some urgency. I nodded, thanked the goddess for this opportunity, picked up the phone, pushed the PA button. Dory anxiously watched my every move, because this widget was important. Slowly and clearly, I said, "Mark, Dory has no clue where the widget is located." "Mark, Dory is clueless." The entire place erupted in laughter. All the managers came out of their offices laughing, and the warehouse and loading docks came to a standstill. This lasted for a good 5 minutes at least. The act of this huge group belly laugh was like a valve for all the pressure that had been building up over trying to keep up during our busy season. It totally changed the mood of the entire place for the better for a while. Fortunately, Dory was good-natured, and did not take offense. She laughed, too, because I had done exactly as she asked. Consequently, relations between office staff and quality control began to thaw along with our relationship with the warehouse staff. When I occasionally ventured out into the warehouse, people were much nicer and more cooperative. It became a nicer place to work, and all because of malicious compliance. And, yes, they did find the widget. Next one is titled, "Sure, I'll take down my negative Yelp review." This happened to me a few years ago. I was owed a significant sum of money by the company which handles my doctor's billing. She worked at a large healthcare system which outsourced billing to this company. For months and months I tried via email and phone to get the money back, but each contact I was treated rudely or ignored. They would either say they are still working on it or would act like I had never requested the money in the first place and needed to start the process over. It was maddening. One day after receiving another rude email from this company, I decided to leave a Yelp review on my doctor's page. I essentially said that while the doctor and her staff were helpful and professional, the billing company they used was atrocious and made the entire experience not worth it. Lo and behold, the very next day I get a call from the CEO of the billing company. He asks what the problem is and I explain. He says, "Okay, I'll make sure the money gets sent as soon as possible. Could you please take the review down?" Apparently he was getting angry calls from my doctor and he seemed pretty pressured to get it taken down. I respond that I can take the review down after I get my money back. He gladly accepts my offer. A week later, there is my check in the mail. Here's the thing though, I never specified how long until I would take the review down after I get the money. So, I wait a week. Get some calls, texts from the CEO. Ignore them. Wait another week. Respond that I'm having technical problems logging into Yelp but should have it resolved, soon. After about 6 months of him reaching out and me being as unhelpful as possible, I finally took it down. The next time I returned to that doctor's office, it was a whole new billing system. Not sure if my review made a difference, but it was sweet malicious compliance regardless. Next one is titled, "Don't Pass Any Moving Cars." So, my high school sits back away from a highway, and the parking lot stays open for about 1.5 hours before and after school. There's an administrator at the school whose job is to stay in the parking lot and walk the cars to make sure nobody's doing anything wrong since it's a large school with a huge parking lot. Many people I know have complained about him, but he's never given me a hard time. When you turn off of the highway, there is a 1/8 mile straight road driving up to where the parking lot entrance is, so people typically go relatively fast through it, however some people go crawling slow. Now the road is 2 lanes, with the left lane going to the bottom of the parking lot and the right to the top. One day I was coming in like I always do, about 15 miles per hour. Of course there's a sophomore who fresh got their license going 5 in the right lane, but I go to the bottom anyway, so I just drive past them and park, just fine. But as I get my backpack out of my trunk, administrator walks up to me and starts talking. You running late this morning? Me. I guess so? Did the parking lot start closing earlier? Well, I just saw you passing cars on the way in. Me. No, I didn't. I just watched you pass a car. Me. Finally understanding what he's talking about. Oh, we're not allowed to pass cars coming in? Sorry, won't do. You'll get a warning this time, but next time I'll take your plate and get your parking tag taken. Now this really ticked me, because I've been driving to school for 3 years and never had a problem with my speed, much less for passing. Me. So we can't pass cars in here? Even if they are going slow? You shouldn't be passing any moving vehicles. Bad wording. For the next few days I started going slow into the lot, and taking footage of people passing me to it to ask him what he'd do about it. When he eventually admitted he didn't care, I asked him why not now. He didn't have an answer. On Friday of that week, one of my friend was broken down in the road to the lot. So I told him my plan and got him on board with what I wanted to do. Typically when broken down here you roll your car to the lot in neutral and leave it in the lot till it's fixed, but I wasn't allowed to pass. I parked behind him and waited for friend number 2 to show up. They started pushing the car while I idled and rode right next to them. After about 5 minutes the VP came up. He asked me what I was doing, and I told him I was following the rules that I made and he should go get him. VP tells me to just go, but I insist on following the parking manager's rules. At this point 10 cars were lined up in either lane, getting more upset by the minute. A comes up with VP and immediately looks like he ate a scat sandwich. He tells me to just pass people as long as I drive safe. Other than odd looks, he never gave me a hard time again, but he still leaves extra warning notes on my car for petty things such as parking too far over in my space or not having headlights on instead of running lights. Next one is titled, "You're right sir, I can't help you." I'm a 20, female, that works at a boat shop. I don't know much about boats but I know some things. I get a call, an old man is on the line. I answer with my normal introduction, "Hello, thank you for calling boat." He cuts me off by saying, "Parts. We don't have a parts section, we are a small boating store." I ask him what part he is looking for. He asks if we don't have a parts section. I say no and ask what he is looking for again. He says, "No, you can't help me. Is there a man on duty that can?" This irritates me because if he tells me everything about his boat I can help. I explain to him that, yes there is, but he is on break and won't be back for. He cuts me off again and says he will wait. I put him on hold for 10 minutes and he ends up hanging up. Guy comes into store 20 minutes later and asks again if there's a guy here he can speak to. I tell him he is on break and won't be back for an hour. He then tries to tell me what he needs and I say, "I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry, I don't think I can help you sir. If you come back in an hour I'm sure my coworker can." He tells me I'm rude and leaves the store. Haven't seen him since. Last one is titled, "Boss wasn't happy with me taking a small break every day." Backstory. I've worked at my current company for around 3 years now and it's fair to say I've earned a reputation of a hard-working employee. I would typically get in an hour early, hated sitting in traffic every day, and leave around 10 minutes after my day was supposed to end. Since it was my choice to come in early I had no problem staying until when everyone else did. One difference however was that I would take a small 10 to 15 minute break an hour or two into the working day to grab breakfast. After some recent changes in management however my new boss had a discussion about the break that I was taking, and he told me that I must be working during my contracted hours. So, around 2 weeks ago I stopped coming in early. I got into work 1 minute before I was meant to start, took every minute of my lunch break and finished as soon as the clock ticked over to 5 p.m. A few days into the changes a lot of upper management noticed the changes and I suspect they've spoken with my manager to find out why I've changed. Safe to say that my company now probably loses out on 7 to 8 hours of unpaid overtime every week now, all because my manager didn't like me taking a 10-minute break.